Hi, everyone. I'm your host, Maurice, and you are listening to the Lifetimes Podcast. Podcast where we will explore the different stories, life lessons, and experiences of Filipinos navigating through life and adulthood in a foreign society. Thank you so much for tuning in for this episode. And if you haven't yet, please give us a follow on Instagram at the Lifetimes Podcast and subscribe to the show on whichever podcasting platform that you're using: Spotify, Google Podcasts, or Apple Podcasts. We have a very special guest, a friend of mine from San Diego, California. We've actually been introduced to each other a couple years back, but we never really had any serious conversation or talked about life or anything like that. It was more of a, just say hi, hello, ask how each other are doing. Then we go hang out, we go do some activities together, or eat food at a party. but other than that, we've never talked about each other's life or jobs. And for myself, being a geek or nerd in war history, I've always been curious about the life of servicemen, the life of people in the military or in the armed forces. And that's exactly what our guest will talk about today, about his experiences while he served in the United States Navy. He shares with us some of the stories that he had while in boot camp and also the time when he was deployed to South America. So please allow me to welcome our guest today, my friend Wilbur.
Hey, what's up, y'all? Mga kababayan.
Hey Wilbur, thank you for joining us. We were introduced to each other about 2 years ago, and we we sort of just
Hung
hang out
out,
with each
yeah,
other,
yeah.
but never really talked about something.
Like, like personal life. It's more like, hey, how you been? Small talk like that.
Yeah. Before we get going, Wilbur, do you mind just giving us a quick intro of who Wilbur is and how you got to where you are right now?
Okay, so I'm 29 years old, turning 30 this year, which is getting there. And I'm a software developer, but currently I'm looking for a job since COVID hit, and it's been like just back and forth with like interviews. Nonetheless, I was in the Navy from 2012 to 2016, and I was an aviation electronic technician. And I joined maybe a year after high school. I gave the community college a try, but didn't really have like a path where I need to be going, so I decided to join the military to have like some sort of structure in my life at that point.
For myself, I love history. I love learning about especially World War II. And I'm kind of familiar a little bit with the different ranks. I think you start as a private, move up to, I don't know, what's like a sergeant or... So there's different ranks, right? Are those terminologies the same for in the Navy?
Oh, it is not. Navy is completely different. So Navy and Coast Guard has the same ranking system, or like as far as like name goes, but the Marines, the Air Force, and the Army are different. So for like the lowest class, like lowest rank or pay grade as we call it, Navy sailors are called seamen or airmen. If you're called an airman, you're in the aviation side of the Navy. And what you're going to be doing is more likely related to Navy planes and aviation stuff. But if you're called a seaman, you're going to be doing a lot more on boat stuff. Like you're going to be helping navigate ships or fixing things on ships, but not necessarily related to planes.
I thought the Navy was just the boats, and then the Air Force would just be everything up in the air.
So Navy is actually bigger than the Air Force as far as planes go. Like originally Air Force was built, or it was started in 1950, 52 I think, or 50. It was after the World War II. Before that, the Navy already had aircraft carriers, which are ships that carry planes and they kind of land on planes, take off on planes, or carriers rather. And the Air Force was actually built just to solely be an aviation community. But the Navy has two sides, which is aviation and the ship side of things.
Yeah, I didn't know Navy. The Navy also had air power,
Oh
if that's
yeah, yeah.
if I can say it that way.
I mean, the key difference is probably the Air Force takes off on land and Navy takes off on water. But we still do have like bases that hold naval aircraft and they're on land. They're not on the at sea or anything body of water.
Let's go back a bit here at the start of your time in the Navy. How did that go? From what I understand, everyone going into the armed forces, they have to go to basic training.
So, oh man. Yeah, boot camp is probably the most eventful start to something in your life. Like, your first day of high school is always going to be like nerve-wracking, but this one is different. Boot camp is a completely different animal. So the first, I don't know if I should be talking about this, but it's going to scare people off for sure. So the first 24 to 36 hours of boot camp, they keep you up. Like no sleep, and you're not gonna realize how long it has been since you last slept. But it's probably one of the most shocking things in your life because they keep you up and they give you no food or barely any food, water, yeah, to survive. So the reason for this is they make you suffer for them to like control your mind and have you be submissive to them. And it gets worse because as you go on to boot camp, you're gonna realize like how insignificant you are to some people. But as far as boot camp goes, it's fun, it was challenging, and a hilarious experience. Yeah, they try to break you and be just keep you submissive to them. It's definitely like one of those things where they weed out who cannot be trained or who can't follow orders and they determine who's like a really good candidate for like the military. And a lot of my peers at that time, some of them got sent back home or they had problems with attitude and they didn't really follow orders and they weren't deemed as trainable. And the military is definitely like big on someone who's able to like have respect and give respect. Boot camp is basically just like trying to prepare you for the rigors of military life. A lot of emphasis is following orders, but at the same time, they give you a structure for you to follow. And a lot of our boot camp time was spent on uniforms and general laws and bylaws of the military. And they kind of just behoove you to be a perfect person to follow what is instructed for you to do. And those shell shock stories about the World War One or two, it kind of makes sense because you're shocked into war and you don't really have the thought process to go about things anymore because you were trained to just attack, 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 or like defend, defend, defend. And a lot of this boot camp or basic training does is like allow you to mentally be stable in times of pressure.
How long was basic training or boot camp? How long did that last for?
It's different for every branch. I think the Navy was 2 months. And I'd say, from what I've heard, that Marines is the hardest boot camp for sure.
I have this website up right now on my computer. I'm not sure how accurate this is, but it's from Navy.com. And
Hmm.
I just looked at the requirements to join the Navy. One of the physical requirements here, or not one, actually, there's three, is to do 50 sit ups in 2 minutes, 42 push ups in 2 minutes, and 1.5 mile run in 12.5 minutes.
Oh yeah, we call that the physical fitness standards, I think. And a lot of military follow certain standard for their fitness level. And I remember when I was in, I always made sure I had like the max, the max standard, because a lot of military guys are machismo type, like type A dudes that kind of just like, hey man, yeah, we're gonna do this. I'll be the best and I'm gonna beat everyone. That's kind of like the culture when you go in. And I remember just like maxing out my push-ups in 2 minutes, and I my record was like 130 something push-ups in 2 minutes. It was
In 2 minutes?
yeah, it was insane. They call me a bunny rabbit when I was doing it because I was so fast. And my best time for like a mile and a half was like 8:27. It was definitely fast for me because I got short legs and like my gait is not as long as others. But yeah, I held myself accountable to being fit at some point when I was there.
I'm lucky enough to do 10 in 30 seconds. But
Oh, dude, that's easy. Uh, yeah,
and to our listeners, these are like proper push up where your chest
yeah,
is like on the ground, right?
yeah. It's not like, oh, people say, oh, you just got to break 90 degrees with your elbow. No, it's not true. You don't bounce off the ground. Like you can't bounce off the ground with your chest. You have to like get as close to the ground as possible with your chest, and that counts as one. And you have to straighten out your elbow as you go out, and that counts as one push-up. Because when you get tested, people in front of you are like counting and like detailing like what counts and what does not count as a push-up. It's definitely true push-ups per se.
So there'll be times where you would do more, I guess, but it won't be officially counted.
Yeah, exactly. So that
Oh.
130, I could have done like 150. I'm pretty sure I did 130. So on the lower standard of things, we call them dolphin push-ups, the cheater push-ups. That's when someone's back is like not straight. They're kind of arched and they kind of just do like hip thrust movements with their arms and hips. And yeah, it kind of looks like a dolphin coming out of the water with their head up high. That's why we call them dolphin push-ups. And those are the funny ones that you kind of look at and like, what is you doing? Yeah. I don't know. Some people kind of just like take for granted the fact that they're able-bodied and they don't really work out. And it's kind of weird that as a military personnel, you're not like taking into account your health. And to me, like I kind of view those guys as like, come on, man, you can do better.
During boot camp, you're living with the other recruits every day. You see each other every day. How was that experience like? You're with these other guys you've never met before. Maybe some you know, maybe some were recruited with you, but how was that like?
It was definitely an experience. You see different cultures, different races, and different perspective of life, like all rolled into one big room of like 100 people, or like maybe less than that, 80, 80 bunk beds. It's fun because I've definitely met people in my boot camp that were amazing people. Some of them were like older, some of them were younger than me, and it gave me kind of like an outlook of what's out there in the world. And when I was in boot camp, there was this guy that I knew, I'm not gonna name anyone, and he would have dreams, like nightmares, and we would just make fun of him the next morning because he would be yelling in his dreams, and it's kind of funny. One time he woke up and kind of just yelled, "Mama!" And he's definitely like talking about his mom, and yeah, they probably missed him or something, or missed her. There was a guy that I knew. He was one of those guys that definitely didn't take orders very well, and he would always like have attitude towards like the instructors. And one time he didn't make his bed right, and I just remember him standing all day with like his mattress on top of his head, like he was holding it. So that was maybe like 2 3 hours of that. It was the mattress is like a single size bed, so not that big, but at the same time it was made of rubber, like the latex cover. So it's definitely heavier, and the foam was definitely older version of like foam, so it's on the heavy side. And I just remember every time like we would make our beds, it's like a tough thing to lug around. And for him to not follow orders and just like make him hold it on top of his head, it was funny. Some of these things that we did in boot camp is just, I don't know if people would like it or like be ready for it ever.
What time did you guys wake up?
Oh man, so we waking up is called Reveille in the morning. So some guy in the PA or like a horn saying Reveille, Reveille, something, something. I forget what they say, but that's basically the start of our day. But our instructors would definitely barge in at 4 in the morning or like wee hours of the morning and just wake us up with like loud noises. And they're not like really using the best language too. Like I'm pretty sure I can't say it here, but they're definitely yelling things in your ear as you wake up. And it definitely carried on to my civilian life because every time my alarm would go off, I would just like really jump out. Like I was in boot camp all over again. It's sad. It's ingrained to my head to like jump out as soon as I hear things.
But you don't wake up before anymore, do you?
No, I don't wake up at 4 anymore. Luckily, I have that luxury now. But yeah, it's definitely 4 o'clock, even 5 on like the nicer days where they're too lazy to wake us up, I guess. Yeah, but 4 is definitely the norm for us. And 6 o'clock is Reveille. So the 2 hours in between, we kind of just like hang around and do things. The instructors would make us do push-ups and whatnot. Like find something wrong with us to punish us. It's hilarious.
When they wake you up at 4, it's not like you gotta get ready right away. They're just waking you up.
Oh yeah, they wake us up and find things to like, oh, someone snuck in this thing from the bathroom or like it's on their bed and yeah, like just nitpicking at things and make us like, suffer. Suffer in some way or another.
Yeah, because the movies I've seen, obviously they're movies. They wake them up, and you have to prepare your bed and then put on your clothes and all that. Is that accurate with what you experienced?
Yeah. I think there was a time or no, there's definitely like a time slot where we have to make our bed and they make us do drills of like making our bed in under a minute 30. Yeah, yeah, it's crazy and it's fun because like it makes you like be competitive, but at the same time, like you kind of get annoyed up by it because like a lot of people can't do it, obviously at that time that we're given. And so in a minute 30, you're supposed to get like the 45-degree fold on your corner of your pillow or corner of your bed liners, and
They check that 45 degrees.
yes, yes, it's crazy. And there's the fold on your blanket is supposed to be like 9 inches from the top of your mattress to the first fold of your blanket. Is it 9 inches? I don't know. But we use a notebook that we use as kind of like a ruler. So like if you pass that notebook, it's too long. If it's not as long as the notebook, it's too short. Yeah, it's definitely intricate. Like even, oh man, I'm going back to this. I'm getting nightmares right now.
That's intense.
It really is. A minute 30. So we also have to roll our blankets, take out our pillow sheet, and yeah, we have to strip our racks naked before we can start that minute 30. And then our instructors would be like, all right, you got a minute 30, ready, set, go. And then, yeah, that's when the mayhem starts. Everyone, like, I was on the top bunk, and it was horrible for me because I'm short. I'm only like 5'4", and it was definitely like something that gave me a challenge. Like, I was jumping up and down at the racks, and it kind of made me train to be like ninja-like. So minute 30, make your bed. And if you don't, so the others, if you they don't finish their bed, but you finish your bed, you still have to do push-ups or sit-ups with them or do squats. Which, like, that's the annoying part of things. Like, obviously, people can't do it under that time.
That's really
Yeah,
that's
it's
really something.
yeah, it's pretty intense.
So you're kind of, well, you're not really competing with the other people around there, but it sort of kind of feels that way.
It does because you take pride in your work, and obviously, when someone's like lacking this skill, you kind of just like try to push them and like teach them like little tips and tricks of like how you do it, and makes them a better like person in doing things. And I think that's very important because when you start like being able to share your knowledge as far as like things to do, you start understanding the concept of a team. And it's kind of crazy how boot camp was meant to shape you into a military person, but also work with a team. And that's like important.
There's a high emphasis on team because, worst comes to worst, these are the guys that you will go into combat with,
Exactly.
and you rely on each other to look after each other.
Yeah, yeah. So definitely they put an emphasis on like the weakest link of the chain and what the team can do to make that person or that weakest link a better, individual. And it makes the chain stronger, more cohesive, and obviously it um, withstand troubles and challenges. It's awesome. You don't realize it until like it's kicking in your head, like, oh yeah, help this guy.
To help each other to get to the next level. That's really something, not just for the armed forces, but it's really a great skill to acquire just for everyone.
Yeah, team player for sure.
So in that atmosphere, everyone's rushing. You said earlier the mayhem happening. Are there any joking going on with your peers there, or everyone's just stone faced, like serious?
I mean, I don't recall. I was definitely one of the serious type, and I was definitely like all about business. Like, come on, man, let's do this. Like, I don't want to get punished or whatever. And it's actually like hard to joke around at during those times. But definitely like when no one's watching, it was just us, the recruits, by ourselves. Like it's definitely like a brotherhood. Like we would joke around and kind of find things to like pick on you. But during like drills or inspections, it's definitely like all business. We don't mess around with it.
What'd you guys do for your free time?
Free time, it's kind of weird. We would recite the Sailor's Creed to memorize it.
You still remember it?
Oh man.
Is it like Panatang Makabayan in the Philippines?
Parang
And you
ganon,
have to
parang
recite it?
ganon. I kind of forgot honestly. But I'm pretty sure like once I look it up and like see the whole thing like in a day or two, I'll be able to recite it again.
In my experience, I've seen people who worked in high stress situations, and when it's time to unwind and when it's time to relax, they're really relaxed. They really have fun. So I'm assuming in the Navy, it's probably high stress and all that training that's going on around you. It's high stress. So once you get that downtime, how's the environment like with your peers and yourself? You guys just kind of, how do you guys unwind? Let's put it that way.
Oh man, so after boot camp, that's when everything is very much more relaxed, like very relaxed. And sailors are known to drink like alcoholic beverages and all that. And if you know like a US sailor, we're usually associated with getting drunk at a bar. Yeah, and that's basically like a huge like culture like ingrained to us. And now the more politically correct Navy is trying to change that culture, which is weird because the drink rum was actually like a drink made for sailors when the exploration era began. And 100 proof rum is like it means the sailor approves of it 100%. Like we love that thing. And yeah, it's just like, you know, that's our downtime is to drink, which is weird cuz yeah, it's not healthy. It's definitely not the way to like recover, you know what I mean?
Yeah, just the irony there because you have to stay fit, but then you guys are having these drinks.
Dude, there's stories of like we would have physical fitness tests where sailors would actually drink beforehand. Yeah, I've done it like one time, and it's kind of just like a challenge to us. Like I remember I was in Florida for my A school, and during this time we were getting tested like physically once a week. And one time my buddies and I were like, "Hey man, like let's take a shot at this before our run." And we definitely did that, and it did not end well. I had like the worst times of my mile and a half run, and one of my buddies actually like puked at the end of the run, and we were just like, yeah, are we gonna do it again? Maybe, but this is definitely like hilarious.
Did you guys finish the bottle
Oh
before
no, no,
starting?
heck no. If we did, I don't know if I can walk. But yeah,
Yeah, you probably have a lot of these stories that will stick to you for the rest of your life.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It's definitely life changing and irreplaceable for sure. Like irreplaceable experience, both good and bad, I guess.
I see these military fail videos on YouTube every now
Uh
and
huh.
then, and it's pretty nice seeing servicemen just having a good time. Some are fails like with training, or some of them pranking each
Hmm.
other. Do you have one of those stories?
It's definitely there's a lot.
Give us one.
It's not really a fail, but it's more like I guess it's a fail video. Alright, so one of my buddies, he's a heavy sleeper. Like dead sleep all the time. Like you can't wake him up unless like you take out his shoe or something, or like something like very physical. And one time he took a nap in the back of our work center or workshop. And knowing him, like he doesn't really move around. We I knew how to cut hair, so I had the tools to like cut hair and whatnot. And one of my friends told me, "Hey man, you should draw a penis on his head." And like knowing myself, like I would have done the same thing. I grabbed my hair trimmer, clipper, and I started doing work. It was it was pretty big. It's pretty big. Big number three, big letter D, and yeah, he woke up, and we were just like looking at him like seriously, like we're not trying to laugh or anything, and see if he can walk around the ship with that on his head. And he didn't even get past like the first ladder when someone stopped him and said, "Dude, something's on your head. Something's on your head, and you're not gonna be pleased." I mean, that's not verbatim what he said, but it's definitely like more graphic. Like he got yelled at actually, and he looked at his head, and he was just like, "What? WTF?" Like he was yelling like, "Who did this?" And then he looked at me because like I was the only one that knew how to cut hair on our shop, and I was just like, "Dude, it was a dare. It was a dare." And so yeah, I had to like give him a haircut, like shave that part, and made sure I hit it well. It was funny. It was a fail funny experience, I guess. Yeah, he's actually we turned out to be good buds, and I still talk to him every now and then.
That's probably the best haircut you've given after the.
It's really not the best because I use the hair trimmer, So like what it does is gives people lineups and like gives you a sharp edge on your haircuts. And when it was time for me to like shave it off, I can't really get the outline out. Like if you really look hard, you can still see like where it was. And so like so when you're walking around the ship, there's some like weeks where you're on duty and you have to wear a hat. And every like he would just wear a hat and just say I'm on duty like the whole time just to hide it. It's pretty funny.
Speaking of the ship, how long were you out in the water?
Oh, yeah, we would be out like maybe a month. It's called a workup. So we would take 1 month out in the sea or like 1 week. And this is just to like practice what being in deployment would be. And for deployments, it's usually like from 3 to as long as a year out in the sea. And I've even heard stories of being out like 2 years in the sea. But that's like the old Navy. I think they don't really do that anymore because it's not healthy for an individual to not see land for like 2 years. Yeah, deployment's definitely like the longer side of things, and it's crazy because you're just like the lone ship out there. Like there's nothing else, just water surrounding you. And it kind of makes you either be scared or like realize how big Earth is at that perspective because like it's all water. You don't see anything else. And it's kind of beautiful, but at the same time eerie. Like eerily beautiful for sure.
Were you ever deployed?
Yeah, I was. I went to 2 deployments, but they were the shorter versions of a deployment, and it's called a party cruise. And luckily, I wasn't deployed on like the eastern side, which is where like an eastern sailor would go to, like Afghanistan and all that, Dubai, like the deserty area of the world. But a Western sailor, which is what I was, we usually go to Hawaii or Japan or Philippines or Australia. And I was lucky enough to be part of this cruise, party cruise, for 4 months. It's going to South America, going around South America through the Strait of Magellan at the tip of Argentina slash Chile, and going back all the way to the east coast of the US. So from west coast to the east coast, but this time we had to go through South America. And that was like the best deployment anyone can ask for. I don't care what anyone says about Australia, but this was probably the best deployment a sailor can ask for.
I just did a quick search for the Strait of
Magellan, yeah.
Yeah, you go all the way down to like the very tip,
Very
right?
tip. So
Of,
at one point we were 60 miles off the coast of Antarctica, and it was cold. It was freezing. I remember I went to the top of our carrier to take pictures, and my camera froze because it was so cold. Like moisture from my breath started crystallizing on my camera as I was taking pictures, and then my battery died because it was cold. And it was at full charge. It was at full charge before I went up and take pictures, and it was just cold that it froze. And I kind of just like admired the grandeur of things without any digital things with me. Like I kind of just soaked it in as it is as we went through the Strait of Magellan.
I actually didn't realize how close Argentina is to Antarctica.
Yeah, yeah, it's very
I
close.
I just noticed that now just by looking at this
Yeah,
map.
we're not lying about the 60 miles. Like people think we're lying, but it's super close.
I'm having a hard time at first trying to, because you said you'd take that trip rather than the one that goes to Australia.
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
like, Japan, Philippines, Australia, that's a good vacation. Right?
Yeah, but this one's once in a lifetime. Like,
Yeah, I'm really curious how that was like going around that area.
it was epic. It was nice. It was difficult at times because obviously you're away from home and there are things you don't see coming. But overall, that my assessment of that deployment, it was amazing. Like I would go back to the military again and do it just for that cruise. It was that nice. So we we did diplomatic things as far as going to countries in South America, but like I said, in our downtime, it was party, 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 party. We hit ports in Peru, Chile, and Brazil. Peru was our first stop. We landed on Miraflores, Peru, and it was beautiful. It was an oceanside town. It was pretty modern. They had like Western things there. The seafood was amazing, amazing. And during that time, I was able to go to Machu Picchu, and
Oh, wait, hold on. Sorry to cut you off. How long were you guys there?
we were
In
there for like 4 days, 4 or 5 days. Yeah,
Ford. I'm just looking at the distance from Lima to
Picchu.
Machu
It
Picchu.
was a bus ride. Like I remember just being in the bus for like a day, or like it was definitely a day travel. I had to reserve my spot in like one of the vacation rentals or whatever. And yeah, it was epic because first of all, the thing is huge, and it was built like it was around 14th century or 13th century or something. And at that time, it was the Mayan, Incan, and other like Native Americans that were really like the epitome of culture and like society here on the Western world. And for me to see that the structures that they made at that time, it was epic. It was indescribable because a lot of these things were made with no machineries. They just had hand tools and pickaxe and all that, and like laid every brick hand by hand. And it kind of just makes you realize like how far we come along as a society.
So once you guys get to port, you're pretty much go do what you want kind of thing.
Yeah, like you schedule what you want to do. Like let's say Machu Picchu was definitely like a day or two. And the first 2 days, or the first day that we were in Peru, at least I checked out like the local museums. I'm like really big on history, so I checked out the museums, and also I made sure I tried guinea pig.
How was it?
It tastes gamey. There's a smell to it, but it's kind of like cute meat. But you kind of feel bad because you look at these things and they're cute. They're like pets. They're actual pets. But in a Peruvian culture, they see guinea pigs as like a blessing and something that can be harvested. And yeah, they eat guinea pigs and they don't really like have any like cuisine for it, but they roast them. They roast them to the fires and kind of just like put some flavors on them, like chili peppers and all that. And it was good. And tradition is eat guinea pig and also try pisco sour, which is like their national drink, I think.
Yeah, I would want to visit Machu Picchu too
Yeah.
and maybe try that guinea pig.
There's also, I think this was in Chile. We tasted cocoa tea. Like you know how like they make cocaine out of like some kind of tea, cocoa.
Yeah, made from cocoa leaves.
Yeah, cocaine is made from coca, coca tea. That's what I had. Yeah, so the same ingredients that are made from cocaine, you can make it into a tea, and it's really like an enjoyable type of tea. It's not like it makes you high or like anything like being on drugs, but I think it gives like the same effect as coffee. Like it makes you a little bit like more alive, like more aware, and it's good. Like I'd have it if it was legal, but I think coca tea is not legal in the U.S. I think.
Where did you guys dock? Is that what it's called? Dock in Chile.
Kind of forgot. Chile was. It was weird because during that time the seas were rough, and so it took us a day or two to like go to port because we were stuck in the ocean. Because if we try to go in, we would get carried by the currents and hit other ships, I guess. And we just had trouble, like speaking to the Chilean government about like going in with our ship. So at that time, I kind of like lost track of where we were at. But in Chile, they're big on wine. Like Chilean wine is probably the best wine in South America. And I just remembered like going to a steakhouse, like a Brazilian type of steakhouse in Chile, and kind of just gorged on meat with my friends. And they were like, "You're from California, you know about wines. Like, what's like really good paired up with this type of meat?" And I was like, "Red wine all the way." And I just remember like having this Chilean wine with this beef tongue, and it was amazing. It was like on the salty side of wine, and it kind of just bode well with the meats that we were having. And dude, experience wise, like it's probably one of the more memorable things I can think about. Another thing funny about Chile is their currency. So their currency, like it's inflated, very inflated. I just don't remember the exchange for it, but I just remember being like I felt so rich in Chile because one Chilean peso is not even a cent in US dollar. So yeah, I went to a mall there and bought like this T-shirt, and then I looked up the price tag and it was like 50,000, and I was like, what the heck? How much is that? So I looked it up and it was like $70. And then I just remember like the sales lady looking at me like, "You're crazy. Why are you buying this?" But I needed a t-shirt because like the ones that I brought with me were like, like kind of basic, like white tee, not really like nice.
Not really for going out.
Yeah, it was fun. Chilean peso is kind of weird. It makes you feel rich, but you're not.
Let's go to Brazil now.
Okay, let's do Brazil.
How is Brazil?
So Chile is the longest country, but Brazil is massive. So we docked to Rio de Janeiro, which is like, oh man, like just thinking about it, like Brazil is probably the most party central country south of Vegas or Cancun. Is party from day one to day five. I just remember going out every single day, and the beaches were amazing. I was in the Ipanema beach, and we got this beachfront hotel. Dude, it was amazing. I just remember like waking up and like looking outside, and the beaches are, and like people are already like out and about at like 7 a.m. in the morning. It was awesome. Another thing about Brazil is like the culture there is they emphasize on fitness. There's like workout stations in like every 2 miles, which is unheard of in here in the U.S. or like Canada, because parks are very like treated as for kids, but over there parks are like for adults, and they use a lot of machines there and like people running on the street. And another thing is like the food is very fresh. Like I remember I was at a restaurant in Brazil. They had guava juice on the menu. And I remember just seeing guava trees around the restaurant, and this guy literally like cut up some guava from that tree, and like I saw him put it in the back like of the restaurant and made it into juice perhaps. But yeah, it was that fresh. Like literally like they picked out the fruit and then like cut it up and made it into juice. It was amazing. And yeah, that's another thing, like in tropical countries, or like they have that luxury, having your food right off a tree into your table. And it kind of just makes you realize like how far we've distanced ourselves to like that simpler lifestyle. Like the Western world is definitely like more into processed food, and like you can never really like get like a fresh fruit juice anymore.
Yeah, not only that, it's the more fresh that you want, the more expensive
Exactly. Here, yeah. Because I think there's a movement that's kind of like making this like a luxury, I guess, like being healthy is a luxury, which isn't. It shouldn't be so, because obviously like fitness and health are the number one priority of any living individual. Like people say it's money. I don't think it's money. I think it's to survive. which is being fit and being healthy.
That was a fun cruise. Peru, Chile,
Brazil, yeah.
Brazil.
Brazil is epic. And doing that Strait of Magellan thing, I was able to call myself a shellback. So in naval tradition, a shellback is someone that crosses the equator twice. So me, like crossing from west down to south of the South American tip and then go back up South America all the way to the east coast of the US, I was able to cross the equator twice. And in naval tradition, we call that a shellback, which is like very rare for a sailor nowadays.
Truly, once in a lifetime, crossing the equator. That's a very nice achievement to have under your belt.
Yeah, it really is, because there's definitely like deployments where people make the ultimate sacrifice, which is like lose their life. And this definitely was not that. It was the opposite. And I was kind of just grateful and blessed to have that at my experience.
Because with deployments, right, you don't get to choose where you're deployed. You just receive the orders and you just follow.
Yeah, I was pretty lucky. Can't really say much more about it. It was just like a really good time, for sure. And sailors are gonna hate me because I've had this experience and they didn't. But yeah, man. I guess going back to where it was as far as topic goes, like military is definitely like a right timing, right time kind of deal. Like if you're in the right place, right time, you're gonna have a good time. You're gonna have like an amazing experience. But obviously in life, you can't really predict those things. There's no like set algorithm as far as like living a life, and the ups and downs will definitely make you the person who you are.
Very well said. Very well said.
Thanks. Just came to me.
Let's wrap things up now. I like to ask my guests 3 questions, just 3 trivia questions. The first would be, what would be your all-time favorite OPM song?
Man, I grew up listening to Eraserheads. So probably like Ang Huling El Bimbo. And like as far as like cool music that I always sing to my girl, it's probably Kahit Maputi na ang buhok mo. Yeah, that one.
Next question, what would be your movie or TV show recommendation for our listeners?
As far as like
Could be about anything.
Tagalog, or
About anything.
if I say Jurassic Park, that's very biased. I'm big on dinosaurs, so I can't really say that. So let's do. Oh, it's a horror film. I definitely don't want to watch it again, but I feel like people should see it. Hereditary. Yeah, that film would just freak you out. If you watch this at 10 o'clock or 11, you're definitely not going to sleep.
All right. Last question. Being the podcast called the Lifetimes Podcast, if you're given a chance to go back in time, whatever time period it is, what time period would you want to visit or live in?
That's rough because I have so many like things I want to see, but for me, I definitely want to see the peak Egyptian times, like how the pyramids were made and what made them into like a very formidable kingdom. Is that too far back? Yeah, I feel like that's not relatable anymore.
That's fine. No. That's fine. That's fine. Any time period, any time period.
Yeah, that for me.
Because these things now, we only learn about them in books, right?
Yeah, and some of them are lies, a bunch of lies. Okay, yeah, like let's make it relatable. I'll talk about like Philippine culture. I want to see or like be a part of the Battle of Mactan with Lapu-Lapu and when he killed Magellan. I want to be a part of that. I want to be able to like say, "Hey, yeah, I was a warrior. I was a warrior under Lapu-Lapu's leadership and we beat the Spaniards." or he's Portuguese, but yeah,
Yeah, he's Portuguese turned,
Spanish.
but we went to the Spanish.
Yeah, side. Yeah, I definitely want to be in that time frame.
Yeah, like today it's referred to pre-colonial Philippines, but back then it wasn't even called Philippines. So I wonder what the land was really called back then.
I would say,
Just Mactan, most likely, you know.
obviously the Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao was already like what it's called then, right? So I would say, yeah, that's kind of rough. What was Philippines before King Philip's gesture?
Well, you never know. We may look into it in future episodes. So that about wraps it up. Thank you so much, Wilbur, for joining us today in this episode.
It's a pleasure to talk to you and like share my experiences, and hopefully the audience can like live through a little bit of what I experienced, and don't be scared of the military. It's not bad. But yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
And that wraps up this episode of the Lifetimes podcast. And I'm actually recording this outro about a few days after me and Wilbur sat down for a talk, or connected virtually to have our talk. And I apologize to the listeners. There may be some audio technicalities that I had trouble in post. So please bear with me, and it's a learning process. I will do my best to correct these issues going forward so that I can make better quality content for everyone. So if you like that episode, I encourage you to please share the episode to your friends, share it on social media so that we can get more listeners listening to these awesome stories from our guests. And if you haven't yet, please give us a follow on Instagram at the Lifetimes Podcast, and follow us and subscribe to the show on whichever podcasting platform that you're using: Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. And I hope to see you in our next episode. Bye for now.